What we're looking at here is a 2016-2017 model Bajaboard. It was a second-hand board that I bought through eBay and sold for about half the price of a brand new one. But there were some significant issues that I had to address, and the earlier models have got some defects from the actual manufacturing process, which they've now addressed in later models, and also a number of defects just from basically abuse or riding the board in heavy conditions, probably off-road. So I'm going to take you through the pros and cons of this board. I'm going to take a look at each of the details on it and some of the fixes that I've had to put in place. One of the first things was I actually stuck these bindings by MBS on there, and that allowed me to actually stay on the board a little bit better. I don't actually clamp them down hard on my feet when I'm riding, and you can see that from the posted boards that I do, or the videos for the raw rides that I post every single week. Basically what you're going to see here is that I use these more of a way to just hold onto the board. My feet fit loosely inside of those on that particular angle, and what I do is, as I'm cornering and stuff, I use the top of the bindings basically to put more pressure onto the corners so that I can go around the corner harder, or actually lean much more aggressively on the board. One of the main issues that came with the board when it first arrived was really this connection point here, and you can see what I've ended up having to do. There's a failure point here, completely came apart on one angle of it, so I took it to a local welder, and he's actually done a really good job of beefing up these connection points on both the front here and on the side, and the side is where these earlier models will actually crack. Trying to get a better angle in here. You can see the attempted fix for it that the original owner had done. He actually threaded some screws and put them down inside here, and obviously that wasn't really holding on very well. That also caused a fault here. There's connection points on the older models here where these are spot welded on as well, and you end up with a failure point here. And as you can see, when they welded this back on in this particular area, they actually created a space incorrect, so that's why you see a couple of washes here. One of the other things you'll notice too is that it's very loose, so all of these ball joint connectors, and this is probably a better one to look at, are going to get loose over time. You can see that they're very rattly, and these things are going to need to be replaced depending on where you're driving. I do a lot of off-road driving, so you're going to see these needing to be replaced every 200 or 300 miles. If you're just doing it on the road, you're going to be fine, so I wouldn't expect to get this much wear and tear on these. Full set of these are coming from Bajaboards in Australia. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and of course it takes a while to get these shipped, but I'll be replacing all of these on these tie rod ends, or couplers, I'm not sure what you call them. The other thing you'll notice too is that the drive shafts themselves, get a bit angle on this, the drive shafts really need these boots to protect them, and the original models didn't have these boots, so I've actually put these on, and you can see that I've used zip ties to hold these in. I've also put a lot of grease inside of each one of these couplers as well to help minimize the wear of where the tie rod end goes into this shaft here. They've got some hard plastic nubs that take care of that particular connection point here, but you can see that there is a lot of play already in these, and again I've got replacements of those, so the tires actually move quite freely before it connects with the gearing itself. So that can be an issue as well. Newer models, of course, have got a lip in here so that these boots actually stay on better. So the newer models are going to show that as well. You can see here that this one's got the 4 motors on it. This is the GX4 model. Along with that, you've got these Kelly controllers here. I am looking at doing some upgrades here and changing this out from an 8S pack, which the earlier models had, up into a 10S pack, and I'll show you those in a second. What I'm planning on doing with that. The controller, I wish I could show you everything on there, but before I got the bindings on, I came off pretty hard while I was off-road. Controller hit the ground, lost the adjustment button here. I have ordered additional buttons directly from China. They should be here in a week or so, and I'll replace this button and then put the front screen back on. Controller still works, but the settings aren't able to be changed here. As you can see, I've only got the ability to turn the lights on and off. So speaking of the lights themselves, if we turn it on with the on-off button, the lights themselves are quite bright and do a good job from a front perspective, but I'm going to show you some issues with the back lights, and I've got a way to actually fix this. So this is a brand new board that Baja sent me. You can already see 1, 2, 3, 4 of these rear lights are actually already failing. It's just a bad design of the way the board is. I believe the later models have actually got a different design, and you can see this one here is also failing. The real issue here is the contact points between these LEDs and the board, and if you're interested in fixing your own, it's a really easy fix. You just heat up a solder gun and actually touch the edge of these so that it makes the contacts and brings down the it makes a better contact point here, so I can get better power for that. You can see these brake lights actually work too when you brake on the controller. You can see that the brake lights come on harder to let people know behind you you're actually going ahead and stopping. So that's a really nice feature as well. The nice thing about this board is I can upgrade it to the 10S packs. Either build one manually. There's actually a guy on YouTube that does that. You can do that. One of the other issues on the earlier model boards too are these springs. The dampers that are inside of them are really stiff and hard, and basically they wear out very quickly. I'm not sure about the later models whether they've addressed this particular issue or not, but basically these dampers break down very quickly because they are hard. As you can see here, I've replaced the springs here and put the medium level red dampers in here. Again, all available off of eBay or Tramper boards. These ones fit exactly the same way. Gives me better handling from a front perspective, so I can turn a little sharper on the front end, keeping the rear end a little stiffer, so that actually works really well as well. So looking at this replacement piece, which is really the bulkhead, you can see the difference in the design now. This bulkhead looks like it's a single piece. It's also a lot thicker on that inside there. So there's a lot more meat to this. A lot better designed, and I don't think this is going to actually fail at all. Again, much better design for the bulkhead to stop the separation that typically happens along this edge here. And again, if I can get in closely here, turn these lights out. If I can get in closely here, you can maybe see inside here that the amount of metal there just wasn't really good. And with the spot welding that they did, obviously vibration makes this piece collapse. But you can buy the replacement piece. All of the new models are basically solid at this side with the logo on the front. Much better. And you can see the problem that I also had here has now been addressed. These used to be spot welded. These are where the arms come on. As you can see, these arms are going here, and again, really loose. This is another issue that you've got to continue to monitor and change. You can see that the arms get loose over time, and basically you need to change the bushings that are in here. And again, I've got a full set of bushings that are coming through to fix that. So looking at some of the modifications I'm going to do, one of the first things I'm actually going to do is change out all of the Kelly controllers to Vesks. This is the FESC 6.6 by Flipski. It can basically handle 8 to 60 volts, 3S to 12S packs. I'm actually putting in 8S packs, 60 amps to each motor with a burst of 150. I believe that the Kelly controllers are limited to, on the GX4, are limited to 25 amps of continuous, so these should be more than ample to actually do it. And you can see the comparison of the side here with the Kelly controllers, much different. I will lose the functionality of the board as far as the differentials that they've got, the electronic differentials. and also the ability to spin the inner and outer wheels at different rates in corners, which help in cornering. You can have positive bias or negative bias, which means basically you can spin the inside wheel either faster or slower depending on what you like going into a corner. I prefer actually having a little bit more positive bias, so that as you come into those corners and you turn a little bit harder, you kind of get that drifting effect that goes through. Really bad on tires, but works really fun to ride it that way. So that's a really good option. One of the other problems I see here is also these plastic wheel rims. If you don't keep these nuts really tight with Loctite on them, you're going to probably have issues with these stripping out on the inside. At that stage, that's like a $500 replacement if you're going to replace these with the alloy option that they do offer. A little bit overpriced if you ask me, but I'm assuming over time, as these boards become more popular, you're going to see many more aftermarket wheel availability on AliExpress and sites like that. So just another thing to think about. Continuing on with the modifications that I've got these Veracore batteries. I use these on my tramper board. I've got 8 of these set up on the tramper board, 3. I've got 4 of them on the board itself, and I've got a expansion pack that I've created that actually sits on top of the board and plugs into the tramper board. And again, that thing absolutely flies, but it's only 2-wheel drive. Get about 40 miles out of the 8 battery packs on the tramper board. I'm going to put, once I've cleaned out all the electronics inside of this board, I'm actually going to put 6 of these internally in the board, and I'll have to find a way to mount the other 2 on the outside. I'll also have external plugs. I'll probably use XT90 connectors. I'll have one of those coming out of the slots or where the Kelly controllers are, so that I can actually put in my spare battery pack, which consists of another 4 that I can go on top of it. I'm expecting the range would be about 30 miles with the 8 battery packs. These are 5.2 amps hours each, and again, they're 10S packs, so they're 36 nominal volts. Much stronger than the standard battery 8S pack that's in here. Although the 8S pack that's in here is capable of delivering 100 amps at once, and these are basically 13 amps per pack that the current BMS will deliver. I can change out the BMS to get more power out of these particular batteries if I wanted to, but when I added up continuous 13 amps out of each pack, I've basically got 2 per motor, so that gives me 26 maximum concurrent amps to each motor, which is basically how the board is set up today with the Kelly controllers. Of course, I can burst these up to about 40 amps each, and that can run for somewhere between 3 and 8 seconds. So I'll set the VESCs here to handle probably 40 amps at burst, and then come down to constant control of 25 if I need that. I think it's going to be too aggressive, to tell you the truth, by putting those through these particular motors. These are done for top speed, and if you take a look at one of my other videos, one of my raw ride videos, you can see I was coming down a hill the other morning, slight incline, probably 5 or 7%. I just wound it completely out to see how fast it could go, and with the pack that's inside of it, I basically hit the 40 mile per hour mark and then kind of bounced between 41 and 42. I didn't really feel the board increasing in speed at that time, so I'm not really sure if I was actually doing 42 miles an hour or whether that was just a GPS flux changing based on the fact I was actually also going downhill, causing the GPS to think I was going a couple of miles faster than what I was. Theoretically, this board will do 40 miles an hour with an 8S pack fully with its nominal voltage with 100% efficiency. Obviously not 100% efficiency when you've got a 60-pound board under your feet. So what am I going to use? I'm going to actually get rid of the Bajaboard controller once I do this upgrade, and I'm actually going to use this controller here. Got this off of AliExpress. It's not a bad controller. I gave it a test on my tramper board. Works really well. It's nice and smooth here. from a controller standpoint, with auto braking as it comes back to the standstill space here. So I don't mind this. Not a lot of travel though when you're talking about braking being down here, but it is sprung loaded and it was felt quite nice. It's got 3 settings as well to be able to modify and set those up. But of course you can also set it up however you want using the VESC management tool when you do that. The nice thing about this too, it's actually wireless, so just charging the remote is quite easy to do, and it comes with a 2.4 gigahertz controller, which is really easy to hook up to your VESCs as well. Obviously with the quad VESC, I'm creating a parallel cable that will connect the 4 VESCs together, so they can have one for the main controller, which I'll actually put up on the front, and then the rest of the VESCs will communicate through the CAN bus cable. The next change I'm going to make is I'm actually switching out to Alien power system motors. These motors themselves are a lot more torquey. These are 130 kilovolt motors. These are 63 84s, which are slightly bigger, as you can see, than the existing motors that are on there. And I've also got covers for these so that I can deal with those, stop the debris getting inside of here. This is a 10 millimeter motor shaft. Provides really good torquey power at low amperage as well, so it should allow me to go a little bit further because it's a higher efficient motor. Especially running at its top speed. What it's going to do though is, with the existing, right now the setup can do 40 miles an hour with the internal battery that's there. Once I go to 10S, it should take me to 43 miles an hour. I can tell you right now that it is extremely scary and sketchy riding at those speeds. I did it one time, like I said before. It was quite scary. That was with everything tightened down to the max, including the springs here, the springs underneath here. So basically I didn't get any speed wobbles at that speed, but once you start to loosen up the deck springs here for turnability, and you know, these springs here as well, you're going to get a lot more twitchiness as the board moves around, and especially with the issues that I've been facing with the connection points here, you're going to see those same, you know, this is wobbling all the time, which is really rough. Again, those are parts that are meant to basically break down over time, especially if you're hard on the board, so those also need to be replaced. But that's basically what I've got for the Bajaboard right now, and the upgrades that I'm about to do to it. I will bring another video once I've done those upgrades. I'm not actually going to be utilizing this part, this bulkhead, because I think those welds are strong enough, and actually it's riveted in here, and I'd have to screw them back together again, so I wouldn't be looking forward to that. I've actually seen a couple people replace this as well with an aluminum one, so I do know the welder. He said he could make me one of those up. So that may give me a little bit more room to get the battery packs inside, especially if I put an extension out here to allow that to happen. So stay tuned for that. I'll bring you more updates as we go along, and please check out my raw rides where you can actually come along for a ride with me and just see what it's like to ride that around the neighborhood. I'm trying to get more scenery. I was going to go down to the Greenbelt down in Atlanta, but I think this board is a little bit big for the Greenbelt, especially with all the people hanging around.